Are you ready? Okay, I can do this. God help me. Okay.
Okay, take 1, 5, 4, 3, 2.
On December 11th, 2011, I received a phone call that would change the landscape of my life forever. My younger brother, who had courageously fought against his mental illness for many years, put an end to his torment and anguish. It was a pain he could no longer express or contain. I heard what my sister was telling me on the phone between her sobs and screaming, but I was suspended in those moments with a mixture of shock and despair. My family and I had tried everything to help Jay, and now our worst fears had come true. My heart was shattered in a billion tiny pieces. In the hours, weeks, and months that followed, the grief was so completely overwhelming that I felt like I was dying, like I was losing my mind. I couldn't breathe. The grief was heavy. It was like it was sitting on my chest. And I consider myself a woman of faith, but my prayers were paralyzed by the grief. I spent hours curled up fetal by the side of my bed, just yelling, and crying and weeping and just telling God, I can't do this. I can't. Somewhere in the midst of all the debilitating emotions, somebody handed me something about suicide grief, and I consumed it. It was like the only thing that made any sense to me, that all my feelings and emotions were a part of the trauma that I had experienced. And it was like this little sliver of light came right into all the darkness. And so I started to read more and more and got online and did some research about traumatic loss and went to grief groups and read books and my Bible, and I journaled a lot. And I realized God was throwing me life preservers and that I had to grab hold of every single one if I was going to stay afloat in what felt like such a terrible, terrible storm. And at some point, about a year after Jay took his life, God handed me, of all things, a paintbrush. I felt this incredible urge to start painting, to start creating. And I guess, in a sense, I was letting the grief come out of me and pour onto the canvas. I began to pour out my grief onto the canvas, one collage after another, and then another. It just wouldn't stop. It just kept coming. And with every agonizing feeling and all the painful triggers that seemed to assault me each day, I went to my art table and I picked up my brushes. I mourned, I grieved, I cried, and I healed. I remember oftentimes, I would have just a pile of shredded paper at my feet and Kleenex and toilet paper and a towel, just to mop up my grief. And then I would go back to the canvas and, start painting and applying the papers to the canvas. And it was like these layers of grief were being transformed into layers on the canvas. Right before my eyes. My husband sometimes would come upstairs and ask me, what are you doing? And I would say, I think I'm healing. That's what it feels like inside. So what? So why am I telling my story? Because I know that statistics say every 40 seconds, somebody else takes his or her life. So somebody else is going to be like me, or my parents, or my siblings, or my grandmother, receiving that horrible news, worst fear come true, worst nightmare, every 40 seconds. And so if my story can give hope to just one person, then I know Jay's memory is not in vain. The loss that we've experienced as a family will have some piece of redemption to it, because I know there are other people like me that, I really felt hopeless. At times I wanted to just die, because the grief was so intense. But through God and who He is as Creator, creating through me, I started to see some rays of hope, and I guess I want to offer that hope to other people. It's been a little over 3 years, and I'm still learning how to live with the loss. I'm still painting. I'm still healing. Grief has touched every part of me. Nothing has remained the same, and I mean nothing. But when I ran from the grief, I felt like it hunted me down. I had to learn to face it head on. And somewhere along the way, I guess I realized that most times we run away from the very thing that will heal us, as strange as it seems. I miss my brother. I miss his friendship, his humor, his talent. I miss his place in my life. That'll never change. And I know that I'll feel that while I'm on this side of heaven. And I'll look forward to the day when I get to reunite with him and where God brings light to all this darkness. But I'm not going to let the pain paralyze me. I am going to let it propel me into God's purpose or purposes. And in that way, I can honor Jay's memory and maybe even raise a banner on a bare hilltop for other people who are going through this. So that's my story. If you or someone you love is grieving a loss, you can order a copy of For Those Who Weep, a grief response journal, at www.forthosewhoweep.com. All proceeds from the sale of the book go to fund free art classes for those who are grieving loss.